Thank you very much, Devin, for that kind introduction. Since I am the newest member of the team, I thought I'd take a minute, give you a little bit more about my background while my panelists get seated. For over 30 years, I've worked in medical device, engineering, marketing, sales, business development, ultimately running a med tech company just outside of Chicago for 10 years. And after doing that, decided to move down here to Houston recently, as Devin mentioned, to be part of this vibrant and growing community. And I couldn't be more excited to be here. I am here to help launch companies from CDI using the experience I've gathered over 30 years. And so far, we're off to a good start. It's also my pleasure to moderate this panel today, and we're going to get started with some introductions. So, Pollock, if you'd like to start and introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everybody. Good afternoon. Almost feels like a Friday, but it's not. I'm Pollock Jalan. I'm the CEO of Access Health. We are a federally qualified health system located in the greater Houston area, more on the southwest side of Houston. Have about 17 clinics, including women, infants, and children clinics across the greater Houston area and 5 counties. So really, goal is to provide integrated primary care. And fun fact, I'm a dentist by training, but got really tired of looking into people's mouths, so decided to come on the beautiful side of community health.
Thank you. Thank you, Pollock. And I'm Dr. Karakostis. I'm the Executive Director of Hope Clinic. I'm a family physician, as well as the chair of the board of Harris Health System. Been with Hope Clinic for 17 years, and like Pollock, we run the same clinic, a federally qualified health center that serves a very multicultural community, also in the Asia town of Houston, in charge of about 30,000 lives.
Great, thank you very much. So for those of us in the audience who aren't really familiar with federally qualified health centers, Andrea, you volunteered to kind of give a very high-level explanation of what they are for the audience.
Absolutely. Federally qualified health centers is a designation that is given to community health centers that are privately owned nonprofit corporations that get this designation from the federal government because they meet certain standards of care, because our boards are composed of 51% patient base, which gives the ownership to the community. And we are the largest healthcare provider in the country. So while the system is made out of about 1,500 different clinics nationwide, we are definitely the backbone of America's primary care.
Great, thank you. So Pollock, you know, when we think about launching new products, innovating new technology, a lot of us instantly go to hospitals as the place to do that. But when we talked before this, you both had strong opinions on why FQHCs are great places to collaborate and innovate. Why don't you tell the audience why you think that?
Yeah, let me piggyback off what Andrea was saying, right? FQHCs are one of the most incredible primary care healthcare system across the country. So innovations that can really bring the outcomes happen, which is equity, better health outcomes, better patient experience, and better provider experience. In the primary care space, FQHCs are a great environment for that. And on the other side, I think, you think of bureaucracy in an ecosystem. Mm-hmm. When you look at, as large the ecosystem is, the more the bureaucracy. And I think the need is really high in an FQHC setting. The results, the timeline of getting it is a little bit higher. And I think anybody that's trying to truly solve big problems gets the right audience to solve the big problems for. So I would say it's faster, it's more impactful, and it's more effective in a primary care setting if the innovation really wants to be community-centered and community-grounded.
That's great. Andrea, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a lot of the communities that need your innovation the most have the least opportunity of getting it, because innovation happen in areas where are not accessible to our communities. Like Pollock said, we are creative, we are efficient and fast, and we are very experienced in doing quality improvement projects and PDS cycles, which is what you guys love.
Yeah, absolutely. So now let's imagine we've collaborated with you, we've developed some innovative technology, we're ready to implement, okay? And now, Andrea, I know you had a specific story you wanted to tell about implementation and something that went well in that example.
Absolutely. We have worked with TMC for many years and implemented different projects, some very successfully, some not so successfully. And some of the successful models have to do with some of the AI and technology coming ahead, specifically a program called Baby Scripts, which we implemented in for our maternity health program. We have a large maternal program. We have 9 OBs that work with us. We enrolled I want to say over 2,000 women in this app, and helped produce and develop the content and test it out. And the app went really well until, of course, the company sold out. And at that point, we did not quite align on the philosophy of the product. And we lived into the next technology. And now we're very happy with this new product. But that just goes to speak the fact that sometimes you align with the consumers to a certain degree, and then your product jumps to a different market. But the other thing I wanted to share is that you can have a big margin on a few items, but you can also have a smaller margin on a bigger market. And I think that's what FQHCs offer, right? We offer a larger market nationwide.
That's great. Palak, what's been your experience?
Yeah, I think 2 examples come to my mind. One is COVID. We were the testing partner for all of Fort Bend and Waller counties. So overnight, we set up all of these testing and vaccine information. And I remember when we started setting up all the testing information, COVID information was so fast evolving that letting people know, hey, you have COVID or don't have COVID was a nurse job. And there are some incredible nurses, but there were a lot of them at front lines. And having enough nurses to call people and say you don't have COVID was a really hard task as we were scaling up all of the testing work. So a simple innovation in terms of informing the larger community of every patient that got tested that does not have COVID was a tech innovation that we co-developed with the company, and it came to life. And it led to about 200,000 plus tests and vaccinations, which dramatically improved efficiency and communication levels. At the same time, to collaborate, sometimes things don't go well, but that's the point of rapid quality improvement or rapid PDSA cycles. When we've prepared something, we've piloted something, it's working, we can scale it. If it's not working, then modify it. And if it is completely a lack of philosophical or a market change, then you decide to go in a different direction. So you were working, and we still have a health navigation platform which we use and co-developed with a developer to navigate our patients to social services. A lot of our needs for our patients come into food insecurity, housing, transportation, et cetera. And this was a closed loop way to refer folks. And we thought pre-COVID that physical kiosks at these not-for-profits would be the best thing to do. Did a lot of market validation, got a lot of great feedback, and really launched it. And what happened in COVID, most places went virtual, shut down, changed their modality that even in 2025, we're offering care and social services very differently. So now when we see the uptake of that whole kiosk model, it's in the single-digit percentage versus now what we see the online work and virtual is much more higher. So then, we've pivoted to that model versus sticking to the originality. Okay, this kiosk model was going to be the winning model for everybody.
So as you think about innovators out here who might be working with you in the future, do you have any tips or tricks for them if they're going to be working with your organizations to implement something? What should they know? What's different from that standpoint from maybe these larger institutions? Andrea, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think that one interesting thing about us is that we serve very niche communities, right? And the impact we want to do is in this long-term impact for these communities. So really being aware of where are those disparities and what are the issues that affect our community and what are the unique challenges that these communities have. For example, our patients don't have the luxury of taking, 2-3 days from work to come and see a physician to, get a test, come for the results, and come for treatment. So when we look at our workflow, we try to, treat, diagnose, treat, see and treat, right? All in one place. So if you're looking at innovation, look at some activities, some sources that can facilitate that can facilitate the diagnosis on site, on the spot, reduce the waiting time for the patients, reports and all those things. And I think that would help a lot of our patients, as well as some of the challenges that the patients have. For example, our Asian community has large hepatitis B incidence rate. What are the innovation technology that we can use to be able to diagnose sooner, to be able to manage those populations for the long term and things like that. So really thinking about specific populations that these clinics are really focused on.
No, that's great. Pollock, what do you think?
I think a big thing is also knowing that we do serve a large number of uninsured adults as well. So a lot of the mechanisms with which innovation comes about in the healthcare world is through insurance reimbursements. And yes, we want to be cognizant of that, especially when it comes to the Medicaid and Medicare population, which is big in an FQHC setting. But there are also a high number of uninsured. So as we're thinking of the innovations, especially if it's digital in nature or revenue cycle based in nature, thinking through all audiences and all of the payer mix that truly impact an FQHC can make those innovations more richer. And doing some of that groundwork, right? It's a different ecosystem, can be a very good ecosystem to move the needle. Mm-hmm. And collaborating together and understanding the baseline of where we are is super helpful. And I think innovations that are coming through, even on the back and worth of all healthcare organizations, right? Whether it's HR, whether that is AP, whether that is RCM, I think there are so many things that can help drive that beyond what we're seeing out in the world with ambient AI and patient care.
No, that's great. I think we all get very enamored with a technology or a product, but what you're both talking about is really understanding the workflow, understanding the need, understanding how everything works, understanding I know it's not profit, but the business model, right? And that's great advice, I think, for our innovators. For our last topic, I wanted to ask you about, policy is changing all the time. Sometimes it changes faster than other times, right? And we have a lot of change going on right now, but what do you see as trends for all these changes? What sort of trends might be coming from an FQHC standpoint going forward into the future? Are you seeing some changes that people should know about? I don't know, Pollock, if you want to start.
Yeah, I would say, from what we know right now about the HHS policy and what's floating through in the state of Texas and our own policy world and linguistics, a big part is, focus on prevention and chronic diseases addressing. So we talk about obesity, we talk about diabetes, hypertension. A lot of focus, as we're seeing emerging policy come around, is going to be around that. And we do see, a lot of focus on mental health and substance use as well. I think substance use focus, both from a healthcare system perspective, but also a justice system perspective, it's an intersection of both the worlds. So, in some ways, when you think of infectious diseases, policy may not be as favorable what we look at in the healthcare world, but there are opportunities for alignment when it comes to chronic disease prevention and then addressing those chronic diseases as well.
That's great, yeah.
So what I see really is what we hear a lot, of course, is the new MAHA, right? A lot of development in terms of eating and food, but also really trying to make that measurable. And that is more on the population based. What we're seeing in policy right now is also a lot of technology. We're looking at the Rural Health Transformation Act coming through right now, which is bringing $50 billion into rural communities and how that money is going to be used to transform these communities in healthcare access. And I think that for you all innovators here, that is a big pot of money that is already being divvied up across states. States have already sent out their applications to the different states for the participation. So I think that I would be lining up and looking at what are those activities that can make rural healthcare access more effective and efficient. And FQHCs, we fall into that category, right? Looking from especially looking at value-based propositions, looking at outcomes for those patients, and looking at technologies to be able to measure those outcomes, because a lot of those outcomes could be very esoterical. So I think that there's a lot of room for image recognition, coding, and AI, and scribing, and all those things that are existent, but there's a lot of room for improvement.
That's great. So we do have a few minutes left. So do either of you have any parting thoughts for the audience? Any other advice you'd have for them that we didn't talk about ahead of time? We've got a couple minutes here. You can share with the group.
Yeah, I would just say it would be really exciting to see FQHCs as the incubating bed for a lot of the innovations, and have that opportunity to scale across the country. So I think to everybody sitting in this room, think about it as a healthcare model that really scales across the country and can have really large impact on the work that we're doing. So we can really collaborate and make a huge difference. So I look forward to the collaboration as we move forward.
Great.
Yeah, definitely we are not antiquated either. I think we have several umbrella organizations around the country that work with our clinics, one of them being the National Association of Community Health Centers and the Texas Association of Community Health Centers. Both have an innovation committee, and they both look for entities that want to collaborate with community health centers. They bid their projects. They also bring venture capital into these projects to be able to incubate them in community health centers. So I think that there is an opportunity not only with us here present at the table, but also a wider presence of community health centers bringing more innovation to underserved communities.
That's great. Well, thank you both for getting us off to a great start today. How about a round of applause for our panelists today? Thank you.
Thank you.